The whole healthcare system is such a scam. You're talking to a guy that was on the inside of an insurance company.
The FBI swarming a Miami house over healthcare and wire fraud.
What United does is what every insurance company does. You want to talk about a legal racket that's protected by the federal government? It's the biggest racketeering scam on the face of the planet. The official charge I was given was conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud. And looking back at it, I didn't think it was a big deal, but now I understand kind of like the cost of white collar crime. So what I thought was happening was we were taking the money from the insurance company and it was like, eat the loss, fuck you, right? No. That's not what happens. They don't take a loss. They report the fraud to the federal government and the federal government reimburses them every dollar we've stolen.
Okay.
So now I didn't steal from Blue Cross Blue Shield. Now I stole from the American taxpayer.
Right.
Now I'm on the hook for that money with the federal government. So it's like the whole healthcare system is such a scam. Like this whole thing with Luigi, first off, Luigi Mangione's a murderer. I'm not even going to try to defend that guy. But the conversation, it's a total scam. You're talking to a guy that was on the inside of an insurance company. What United does is what every insurance company does. They deny a bunch of claims. You know how many legit doctors I saw that were billing, or legit hospitals that were billing for a legal, within compliance procedure they did, that the insurance company was like, we don't feel like paying you $50,000. You know, we're going to deny your claim. Go appeal it. Go appeal it to who? To the same people who don't want to pay me? It's a scam. It's a total, insurance is like, you want to talk about a legal racket that's protected by the federal government? It's the biggest racketeering scam on the face of the planet. The only difference is that what I do is illegal and what they do is legal, you know? So it's like the flip side to the coin. But yeah, I didn't realize the toll, like how that system is kind of like really protected, and how I'm really like, what I did was, it really hurt like everyday people, because at the end of the day, that causes like all kinds of burdens on the economy and the average taxpayer. So yeah, it wasn't until I finished doing everything and I learned more about the legal system that I was like, fuck. So that's what happens. That's how I affect other people. So I worked for a Medicare HMO.
Right.
So we're dealing with low-income senior citizens, people who can't afford regular health insurance. And in Miami, it's such a scam. You have like Leon Medical Centers, Simply Healthcare Plans, Sun Health, Humana. I'm sure this means nothing to you guys, but all these insurance companies offer what's called Medicare Advantage. So basically, instead of having original Medicare through the government, where you're covered up to 80% of your medical bills, they get this Medicare Advantage plan where basically that company's getting a subsidy from the government. And what they do is they go in and negotiate with doctors to pay them a lower rate, and they get the difference in the subsidy.
Okay.
Right? So it's a total scam. Like instead of you just having your regular Medicare that pays you, it's a company that basically goes in, takes over your Medicare, and like lowballs all these doctors and hospitals to make money off of you. Just to give you an idea of how lucrative it is, Simply Healthcare Plans, the company I worked for before I quit, they made $3 billion in 2018 or 2017. $3 billion. They had actually just gotten acquired for $1 billion by Anthem. Anthem is the same company that owns Blue Cross Blue Shield and a bunch of other giant companies. They deny claims all the time. Even if and it was an HMO, so that means they had a network. You had to go in-network. You had to go to an in-network doctor, in-network facility, unless it's like an emergency. And emergency bills got denied all the time. They would deny people for going, because you didn't go, you went to the right doctor, but you didn't file you're one digit off on the claim number. You did this, but you didn't do it at fucking 5 o'clock, which is the time where you're like stupid shit. And they denied any little reason they had to deny medical claims. They did it. And again, you're talking about senior citizens, people who we should be looking out for, not trying to take advantage of.
Right.
They talk about scammers like what I did. Oh yeah, you're a fraudster. Yet these Medicare HMO companies are taking advantage of old people, like the most vulnerable class we have in society, which is elders and kids. So yeah, man, like the whole thing that's going on with United, yeah, fuck Luigi. He's not cool. I mean, he murdered a guy in cold blood, but it does bring up the same old conversation. Like, and now how they're involving AI to like deny claims and stuff, that's a whole nother ballgame. I haven't seen how that works, but the conversation definitely needs to be had. I mean, there's no reason they should be federally backed. If money gets stolen from you, you got to deal with that. That's why the fuck is that coming from taxpayer money? Why should that come from the federal government? That makes no sense. You know, these systems, they should definitely be updated or something. You know, it's a broken system, that's for sure.
We had a TikTok about that same topic, do 2 million.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and the guy was talking about the AI, basically.
Yeah,
the healthcare. You know, they had the AI that was denying claims, and they knew it was faulty, but the CEO was just like, let it roll, let it ride.
yeah.
So
No, the CEOs are completely complicit and aware of denying these claims. Don't think that it's like, oh yeah, it's some guy. And no. They're making the decisions from like a high level. They are hyper aware of what's going on in their companies, and they're the ones making the decision to deny those claims to make the company more money. It's completely illicit and it's disgusting. It's pure greed. It's just greed.
I've been using Mando's whole body deodorant, and let me tell you, you can use it anywhere. Pits, balls, thighs, and even your feet. Mando's powered by mandelic acid, so it stops odor before it even starts. It blocks odor all day. I'm talking 72 hours. I love the scents too. My favorite is bourbon leather. It smells amazing. You can choose from other fresh options like Cloverwood and Mount Fuji. And the best part, no baking soda, no parabens, just clean, safe deodorant for your whole body. I've added Mando to my daily routine, and honestly, I feel fresher and more confident. It works way better than just showering alone. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid deodorant stick, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. You'll get 40% off your starter pack if you use code COX at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Once again, that's shopmando.com and use the promo code COX. Well, so what do you want to do? Let's you kind of start at the beginning. Like,
I actually have to start before I'm even born. I have to start with like my parents. And no, I'm serious, and it'll make sense.
okay.
So
We had a guy do that. It was 4.5 hours, and it
No.
never made sense.
we'll go like
It was 30 minutes of him talking about shit that happened before he was born. And in the end, it never tied in. But that's why I look at Colby, because Colby and I, when he left, Colby and I looked at each other and went, did that motherfucker start 30 minutes before he was even born? It was like,
All right. Well, I'm born and raised in Miami, Florida.
Right.
So I'm a walking contradiction, and I'm gonna tell you why. I was incredibly inspired by Scarface as a kid. Not for the drug dealing
That's
and not
horrible.
for I know, but follow me for a second. Not for the drug dealing and not for the murdering. I knew I wasn't gonna do that. I knew that guy was a moron for doing that. What I admired about the guy is that the guy showed up here with fucking holes in his shoes. Mind you, he got here the same way my mother did. In the same way, the Mario boat lift.
Yeah.
You know how my mom, you know how they had the whole thing under the tent, I-95 and all that? My mom was one of those people. So it was a very real story for me. Like, this guy was just another one of the guys that showed up on the boat. And how he just said, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and he did it. It was inspiring to me, because at that time, I didn't know anybody successful. I didn't know anybody that made money. So I was like, man, like, if I could do that, but with something else, my life will turn out pretty good, you know? And it really just stuck with me and stuck in my brain. Like, he was like this confident, like ambitious guy.
right.
So that whole era to me is like, I've told you, that's one of my favorite eras. They're like 80s Miami, all the fucking the gangster drug lords and shit. It's just, to me, it's a never ending, like, exciting chain of stories. Like, look at the Cowboys guy. Look how much money he's made off that franchise. He's made like 2 documentaries, a docuseries, and it's all like 80s Miami Cuban drug dealer guys, you know? So
Right.
that all was very inspiring to me as a kid, you know?
I'm trying to think of his name. Corbin?
Billy Corbin.
Billy Corbin, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jewish guy down in Miami. So that's how my mom got here. She got here in 1980 on the boat lift with my grandfather. My grandfather, that's I lived with him for many years. My father got here in 1988. He actually got a fake Venezuelan passport and went to Panama. And then in Panama, he took the bus to Mexico, and then he crossed the border where my aunt was waiting for him to go get him. My parents met, and then funny enough, right when I'm born in 1992, I don't know how this happened, but my dad decides to get involved in the drug trade. Don't ask me how he decided to do that after he had kids.
You saw Scarface, right? This is the way you do it.
Yeah. So he starts making money, make a really good living. And that lasted, that was very short lived because.
What's short lived? Like 6 months or a year, 2 years? What's the lifespan of it?
Well, I didn't find any of this out until I was older. I was like a teenager when like I started learning. Oh, so that's why we went to Disneyland every weekend, you know?
Did he go to jail? Go to prison?
No. He gained enough sense to where he stopped, but it was a good, I would have to say a good solid 3 years.
Okay.
A solid 3 years. You know, he'd tell me stories when I was older of like, you remember that little, you know, bag that had Woody on it that I would take to like trips, and that was like your bag, and I'd put in lockers. Yeah, that had $100,000 in cash in it. I was like, okay, that's great. Or my uncle would be like, oh, one time I walked into your house when you were like at school, and I went to go see your dad, and he was like, hey, come here. And he opened the mattress, and you had like, you know, $250,000 under the mattress. I'd hear these stories when I was older, and I was like, bro, what the fuck? Like, but another thing you got to understand about Miami and Cubans in the 80s, like everybody was doing it. Right. That was just the way of life. I have an uncle. I grew up with all my extended family, so all my grandparents' siblings were like my aunts and uncles. I have an uncle. He's since passed away. My uncle Artemio. It's Spanish for Arthur. He was a huge trafficker. Like he did it for years. He did it for like 25 years. Never got caught. Like it's pretty wild how it was just such a normal part of Miami in the 80s. It didn't make sense to me. And that's built the whole city. That's built the entire city. Downtown, the skyscrapers, and it's kind of spilled over. Like that was the basis for the boom in Miami. That whole gold rush you see in Miami now. It's like the second version of what happened in the 80s, you know, but now it's like fraud.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday. We were talking about how like that whole kind of from Miami up the coast there, it's like there's tons of con men and fraud, and all these guys that get arrested in New York and go to prison for fraud. They all relocate back down there. The mobsters all relocate back down to
there.
Miami.
Yeah, and South Florida. Funny enough, my judge sat in court and said, you know, if this were other areas of the country, we'd be having a different conversation. But I specifically have a message from Washington that I need to send a message to you guys here in South Florida because this is the capital, the fraud capital of the world. Mm-hmm. The fraud capital of the world, bro. That's fucking insane. I didn't even know that. But yeah, I don't know what it is about Miami. I think maybe it's the lifestyle that attracts those kinds of people, snakes and the con men and all the weird shit that goes on. I've never really understood it, but that's a stigma that we carry, unfortunately, and it sucks because there's a lot of great people that have built the city. You know, my grandparents, my uncles, aunts, they're just honest people. But yeah, like that's just been the way of life down there. You know, everybody knows somebody. Everybody has that uncle. You know, there's a funny joke that went on in the 80s. When you'd show up at like a mini mansion or a mansion, there was this big party. And you'd meet the owner of the house, and you'd be like, "What do you do for a living?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm the marimbero. I play the marimba. The marimba is the xylophone. It's like a wooden xylophone." So that name caught on. So that's what we called drug traffickers. Like Cubans in Spanish, we call them marimberos. Okay, that's like a made up term that doesn't even exist in the rest of the country. It's funny when you think about it. And then we actually tell other people who speak Spanish about that term, and they're just like, they don't even know what that means. All right. So anyway, so I'm born in 1992. You know, that all happens. I'm like in elementary school, a kid. You know, my parents are square people at this point. They make money. They're like my mom's a waitress. My dad's a truck driver. And then I have a fairly normal upbringing. Besides here and there, you know, again, the Miami culture. I had a cousin who was just like nuts. You know, he was a little thug on the street. He's actually the one that showed me Scarface for the first time as a kid. Makes sense, right? So, and in a weird way, in spite of him kind of like being wild and like doing all that wild shit on the streets, it was good for me to be around him because my parents were getting divorced at the time. So he was good, like a good older brother figure kind of to have. I'll actually tell you the story of how he moved in. So my parents were fighting for years before they got divorced. And then for whatever reason, I don't remember why my sister wasn't home, but I was there that night and they got in a fist. It was bad. They got in a fist fight. They beat the fuck out of each other. They threw shit at each other. Like I was like hiding in my room because I would hear glass break and that kind of shit. Thank God my other cousin was there that night and broke him up and took him. So I actually decided to leave with my dad that night to get him out of the house so he wouldn't hurt my mother. So I left with my dad and they took our other cousin took us to my grandma's house. And then my cousin Lewis, who's the one that showed me Scarface, shows up at my grandma's house and picks me up and takes me and my mom back to his house. And I live with him. We lived with him for like 4 years or 3 or 4 years at that point. And I'm exposed to like, you know, his thug friends and smoking drugs and all this crazy stuff that it's what real shouldn't see. But to me, it was kind of normal. You know, it's the kind of stuff I'd see in school and drugs to me at that point were like, okay, you know, I never did them like that at that point, but to me, drugs, like just seeing drugs like that around, it didn't really affect me. It wasn't like, oh my God, what is that? I shouldn't be doing this. It was like, okay, just another guy who sells drugs or does drugs, whatever.
Right.
It wasn't, I was desensitized to it, which thinking back is kind of weird because a 12-year-old kid or a 13-year-old kid would be like, the normal kid should be like, what's that?
Right.
And to me, it was more like, okay, whatever, you know.
Well, and also you'd seen movies and been exposed to it.
That
anyway,
too.
and
That too. Yeah, I started
that
watching.
other kids probably wouldn't be watching at that age.
Yeah. So he watches Scarface every day. I'm not exaggerating. Every day. Like
That's horrible.
our parrot's name was Yayo. Like just
Right.
and we named him Yayo because his favorite line was Chi-Chi, get the Yayo. Like he said it every day. And like I said, in a weird way, I knew the things that were going on were wrong. Like the things he would do was wrong. The things Scarface did was wrong. But I didn't want to be like my environment, funny enough, even though I ended up in prison, which is, I'll get to that. I didn't want to sell drugs and I didn't want to like run around on the street. I wanted to be like just different, you know? I didn't want to, I saw that as like, almost like, that, oh, that's what like they do. I'm not them. I'm different, you know? So that's how I kind of started watching these gangster movies as a kid to get inspiration, you know? I kind of picked what I thought was good and kind of left what I didn't like. So that was about middle school. I get to high school and then my mom ends up marrying my stepdad. Well, they don't get officially married, but they get together. And my stepfather is a notorious career criminal. Notorious. Like he had done 6 years, gotten caught a few times. The only reason he hadn't gotten deported is because Cubans are like a special, we have this weird thing because of like Cuba and it's a communist country. And that's
they don't have to send you back. Even if you're here illegally, you're allowed to stay, right?
Exactly.
Wet foot, dry foot.
All that stuff, yeah. Yeah. So
policy, whatever.
That was like, I mean, he tried to sort of hide what he did from us, but it was too obvious, you know. He was a notorious gangster. Like he would sit on houses full of drugs and wait for the right time and bust in there with 3 of his buddies, beat the fuck out of everybody, steal everything, sell all the shit. There was this one story, this one time my mom told me that was pretty wild. He sat and watched this guy who owned a jewelry shop for like 4 days, and he would just follow him and follow him and follow him and follow him and follow him until like he got his schedule down. And then this one time he just sat, waited for the guy. The guy walked in for the jewelry shop. He popped his trunk open because he had seen him put a bag in there, took the bag, and just took off. And the bag had like 50 grand in it. You know, that's how he made his living. Like robbing, stealing, selling, like whatever. He's in the building in FCI right now in downtown Miami. Yeah, it's crazy.
Can't get right.
No, he's done. This is his third Fed case.
Okay.
And every time he's gotten caught, it's been worse, like worse and worse. So that was, again, in a strange way, it was good for me because he was like an alpha male. So I got some good qualities from him. But again, don't do that because you're going to end up like him, right? He ends up getting caught because they set up this whole case against him where for months a CI was recording him on a call. Like the feds were recording him talking to a CI on a call for like months. And they were telling him, yeah, this house, You know, I know where it is. I know how much drugs it has. We're going to break into it. We're going to steal all this shit. And he did it for like 6 months or more. I remember, like, it was an old man. I remember him. He used to drive this Escalator. I remember it clear as day. He used to come into my house and shit. It was pretty wild. So the day they do it, my stepfather leaves my house and he pulls into a gas station or something to get gas. And then as he's leaving the gas station, the feds just, they scoop him up. I don't even know what the official charge was, but yeah, that. He ended up getting an 18-year sentence for that. It was pretty crazy, yeah. And then my mom, needless to say, was left alone. We went through a foreclosure. My house actually burned down. That's a whole nother thing. Car repossessions. We had to move into a fucking trailer. I hated that trailer, bro. The trailer, oh my God. You can't pay me enough money to move back into a trailer park. I can't. I have such a negative association with trailer parks that it's like, it's disgusting. So
I think everybody does. I mean, there aren't, and there's probably nice trailer parks. There are like retirement trailer parks where they actually have like an association. They keep it up. Like there's a planned trailer park, but in general, growing up in the 80s, 90s, you know, you had they were just because they were a lot of the ones that were built in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Like they're just horrific.
Yeah. And there are. I've seen them in Miami. There's a couple like real clean ones that it's in a nicer part of town, but
you still don't want to get hit by a hurricane in one.
Yeah, definitely not. It's not a good idea. But yeah, so he goes away. He gets an 18-year sentence. Our life falls apart. I'm still in high school at this point. I'm like 15, 16. And then at this point, my great-grandmother dies. So my great-grandmother's like the matriarch of my family. She raised me until I was about 15. Very good influence on me. Very good influence on like, she brought everybody from Cuba. Like she kind of like was like, yeah, like the leader of the family. You know? Right. So she dies. My stepfather goes to prison. We lose our house. So my mom is like mentally just like falling apart. She's not doing well mentally. And at that point, I kind of just, I had a decision to make because she wanted to move and I was about to graduate high school. So what I did was I just ended up moving out on my own and I let her move to wherever she was going and I stayed in Miami and I kept going to school. I was working, you know, like 10-hour days at a McDonald's and then I'd go to school from, you know, what was it, 6:30 in the morning till like 2:30. So my life, I fucking hated my life, bro. My life was terrible. It was so bad. It was like that real, like work, sleep, go back to work, sleep, doing something you hate. So there is the first time I get one of those big opportunities, right? Leading up to how I ended up getting arrested later. But so someone approaches me and it's actually like a totally legit company. And I was like, I didn't understand the concept of selling something. Like I didn't know what selling was or entrepreneurship or any of that shit. You know, right. I just kind of like, oh, rich people and poor people. So someone approaches me, a really good friend of mine. He's like, hey, these guys are like offering us this like sales job. And I was like, the fuck is sales? I don't even know what that is. So they explained the concept of like, oh, you know, you sell something and they pay you a commission and all that shit. Long story short, I get involved and I go like full throttle.
What was it?
It was a direct sales company selling like AT&T and Verizon and like home service, like stuff you use in your home.
Okay.
And I ended up building a massive team, like 600 agents, 4,000 customers. I did really well. Okay. And it taught me a lot. It taught me like how
is it a call center or are you knocking door to door?
Yeah. It's kind of like guys? You could do door to door. You could cold call. Now that I think about it, it wasn't like they didn't even supply leads. It was horrible. Right. But I was just so hungry and
you go to a neighborhood, you block off the place, you go to a neighborhood, you just scour the neighborhood.
Go to town. Yeah.
Just knocking. Is it not dialing for dollars? It's
knocking for dollars. Yeah. Driving for dollars. Yeah. So it taught me a lot of good things. It taught me like grit, be tough, you know, rejection. Rejection is a big one. People fucking hate rejection, bro. I read this book. It's called Overcoming Rejection Will Make You Rich. And after reading that book, I really understood, like, it's inevitable. Like, you'll get what you want in life as long as you keep trying.
Yeah.
You know?
It is the whole, you know, you have to knock on, 50 doors to get one sale.
Yeah.
So every time you knock on a door and someone says no, then you got to count that as, okay, well, that's one more towards my 50. Right, that doesn't matter what they said. I'm now one down. You know, and the next door, oh, no, not interested. Absolutely not. They close the door. Great. Now I'm two down. Like, I just got to get to 50, you know. and I'll have at least one, statistically, I should have one sale.
Right.
If I knock on 150 doors today, I'll have statistically should have 3 sales.
Exactly.
You still have to be good, but
Right.
it's, most of those are script, right?
Yeah.
You're just reading the script.
Funny enough, that company was actually endorsed by Donald Trump. Now that I think about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think that's the only like private business he's ever endorsed. Funny enough, but yeah, I actually got to see him at a conference. That was really cool. I got to see him and hear him talk, and he told this whole cool story of like when he was broke, and like he owed like $99 million in debt, and then he went to this one meeting. This one meeting changed everything for him. It was cool.
He likes to tell the famous story about how he was walking with his daughter, and they were walking down the street out of one of his buildings or something, and some guy, there was a homeless guy.
Yeah.
And he pointed at him
Yeah,
and said,
yeah,
see
yeah.
that guy? That guy is worth more money than me, or has
$99 million more than me. Yeah.
worth more money than I am.
$99 million in debt or something like that.
That much in debt.
Yeah. And then he tells the story of like, I almost didn't go to the meeting because I felt like shit and like everything. But, I forced myself to go to the meeting, and then I met this banker who ended up like changing everything for me. So that's another good lesson. I learned a lot of good lessons in that company. One of which is like, most of the times when your life is like on the verge of falling apart, you're probably on the right track.
Right. Well, it's always darkest before the dawn, right?
Yeah. That kind of stuff. Yeah. I met Ross in prison.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So
you
that's
told
like-
me when you interviewed me.
Yeah. So, and we'll get there. So,
Yeah, and for context, people watching, Ross Mandel, who we previously interviewed.
Who we did a video. We could actually link it at the end of this, so that
There
they
you
can
go.
click on that.
Yeah. Definitely. So it goes great. Like, I'm not a millionaire, but I'm making a great living. I get great mentorship. I'm reading books. Like, I'm really developing myself as a person. None of us knew that the leader of like that little team had a horrible cocaine habit. Horrible. Like, it was really bad. And then he ends up marrying another chick that has an even cocaine habit. So, like, he was our leader, and he would teach us everything, and then he wouldn't show up, and then he'd be late, and then he was like, all right, you guys got it from here, and then everything kind of just fell apart. Once we found out, everybody got unmotivated, and everybody kind of stopped doing that business. It kind of fell apart.
Okay.
So at that point, I have to do the one thing I don't want to do, which is go back and get a regular job. And it sucked the soul out of me. When you work for yourself and you have to go back and get a job, it's not really all that good. So I go into health insurance just because it was really the first job I was kind of offered. So I'm fucking miserable. I stayed later than I needed. I'd always get my work more than done. I'd do extra. I'd ask for overtime. Like, I went above and beyond. And I moved up pretty fast within the first like 6 months in that company. But then I start making people look bad, and that kind of whole negative like corporate America environment kicks in. And I start like resenting that company.
Okay.
Like in my heart, I'm just like, fuck these people, bro. I'm here working hard, and I'm trying to make something of them, not just for myself, but I'm trying to turn this into like more than it is. So like that whole negative conversation that I never should have had, I should have just quit the job, is what I should have done. And then, so this guy approaches me while, unfortunately, just the timing was bad. Like I had already started resenting that company I worked for. I was broke, the brokest I'd been in years, which I was not used to. And this guy approaches me. He's basically like, what health insurance do you guys have? I'm like, oh, Blue Cross Blue Shield. Why? He's like, oh, you guys get physical therapy benefits? And I was like, fuck if I know. I don't know.
All right.
So he's like, well, let's try something out. Go to one of these clinics and sign some papers, and then call me after. And I was like, why? He's like, well, we can pay you. There's some money here involved if it turns out well. I was like, right, but like how much? Like, he's like, well, this time around, I'll give you a few $100. And I was like, a few $100? Just go sign some papers? Okay, fuck it, whatever.
So I mean, okay. One, can you speak up?
Yeah.
Okay, 'cause
sure.
Yeah.
I actually just turned the microphone.
No problem. No problem.
Okay, so one, you didn't ask any other questions than that? Like,
No, he just said
you
it's-
have to know that.
No, he just said it's a clinic.
And you're going to go and say you need physical therapy, and we're going to bill your.
He didn't even say any of that shit. He
No.
was just like, look, show up, and they're going to give you a bunch of papers to fill out. And after that, give me a call. I said,
You're not
okay.
thinking this is fraud, this is a scam, this is...
Not at this point, not yet.
Okay.
I'm already kind of like I have a feeling there's something weird going on
But you're
here.
also desperate for money and don't want to ask a lot of
Correct,
questions.
exactly.
You're more concerned about getting $200 than you are about
Definitely, 100%.
possibly something being wrong.
No,
And
100%.
You can always claim ignorance, like, I didn't know what
Exactly.
he just said.
100%.
Okay.
And it really just looked like intake forms. It didn't look like anything crazy that I filled out when I was there.
It's
So
willful blindness.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
That's the way the
I get it.
U.S. attorney phrases
Yeah. They said in my case, ignorance is not an excuse for breaking the
Yeah.
law. Anyway, so I fill out the papers, and then, they get photocopy my insurance card, all that shit. And then the guy that was there, who's like, all right, man, you're all set. The doctor's not here today, but we'll give you a call to reschedule your appointment. I'm like, okay, I'll probably have to come back at some point. All right. The guy actually ends up calling me, and he's like, yo, did you go? Yeah, I went. All right, look, come here. I'm here. Come to my house. I go to his house, and he gives me $800. And I was only expecting like $300. I was like, okay. All right, this is cool. And he goes, hey, all right, well, does everybody at your job have that insurance? I was like, yeah. He's like, well, let me tell you, I'm willing to pay you a little more now because I know this is legitimate. I'll pay you $2,000 per person that you bring over here. And I was like, now I'm just like,
So you're going to get $2,000 and he's going to get 800. The other person's going to get 800.
no, he's going to give me $2,000 and it's up to me how much I pay the person.
Okay.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm like, oh shit. All right. Now we're talking, right?
Right.
And I never asked, but at this point, I'm like, all right, there's something illegal here, but I don't think this is enough money to get in trouble, right? So I'm in my head, I'm like, it's a few $1,000s. Yeah, I get it.
Okay.
It's a couple $1,000s. He's really the main guy. I'm not. All right, whatever. So
he's robbing the bank. You're just driving the getaway car. I didn't do anything. Oh, okay. So that excuse doesn't work well.
yeah. And my whole reasoning the whole time was like, I'm small fish. They're not gonna want me. And then I refer 1, I refer 2, I refer 3, I refer 4, 10, 20, 30, and it goes pretty well.
Right. I guess.
And the guy's like,
What are you paying these guys when you approach them? Are you telling them like
$1,000 typically?
I'll give you half?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't even mention what I'm getting paid, right?
Right.
I'm just like, hey, it's $1,000. All you got to do is show up and sign some papers. I was basically a recruiter, right? So, almost no one at work said no.
Right.
And I worked in a company with like 500 employees. I didn't do everybody, obviously. I knew who to approach and who not to approach. And then the guy, every time, he thought we were going too much to one clinic, he'd give me another address and I'd send them to another place. And it was just this ongoing thing, It was really easy. Like, I didn't have to do much. And then...
So what is he doing? What's actually happening here?
So what's actually happening here is all these clinics are completely fraudulent. Every single one of them. Not one of them is like, they're basically just like here, and this guy knows all of them, and they have an arrangement with this guy.
So somebody set up a clinic, because you don't have to be a doctor to set up a clinic.
Correct.
I can go right now and set up a clinic, and then I can hire doctors to come to the clinic and meet patients. And really, the clinic owner is in charge of leasing the building, setting up everything,
hiring the employees,
hiring the staff, and keeping with compliance.
Correct.
That's typically it. The doctor comes in as an employee, and he meets these people,
Correct.
and then I bill, as the clinic owner, I'm billing their insurance
Their
company.
insurance, correct.
What is...
Getting billed?
What are they getting billed
Physical
for?
therapy sessions.
And the physical therapy sessions he's billing out what, $1,500 for 10 sessions, and that's $15,000 or what?
No, on average they were doing somewhere between 30, to my knowledge, because they could have been more, 30 to 60 sessions.
And how much does each session get? Does the insurance company pay?
I don't know each, but combined per person, it was like $15,000 to $30,000.
Okay,
they were pocketing.
So let's say $20,000. They're giving you
right. So
two.
No. But here's the kicker. So this guy that my plug, this guy, I don't know how the fuck, and don't ask me, but he knows like 20 of these motherfuckers. Right. And that guy works out his own deal because he's a fucking con man and a scammer. He works out his own deal with each one of these guys. And
so the clinics are kicking him back maybe $5,000 for or 10.
Some of them are going 50-50.
Okay, so 10 grand. He's paying you 2.
Fucking 2.
Right.
Right.
He's getting 8, and then the clinic is billing
Like-
for like these
20.
people. Right. So they're just filling out the paperwork saying this guy showed up on the 3rd,
On the 5th,
7th,
on the whatever, yeah.
9th.
Yep.
Physical therapy was good. A little pain in his back.
Yep.
you know.
100%. Yep.
So it's really just becomes just kind of like a mill at that point. They're just cranking
cranking out.
Paperwork that looks good so they can bill.
Mind you, this sly motherfucker, he's got other people that work. I don't know how he did this. Probably just like every time I referred somebody, he'd probably talk to them and be like, yeah, send me people. Of course, he lied to me because, we're all fucking stealing money. So later I found out after I got arrested that he had like another guy there sending him a bunch of people. And he was like, no, I swear to God, you're the only guy there, And me like an idiot believing in a comment. But anyway, and then imagine he had me at my place, right? And then he had another guy that worked at another place. And he had another guy that worked at another place. And he had another guy that worked at another place. He had like 10 of us. So imagine this guy's fucking
he's raking it in.
Where's-
raking it in.
Where did this guy first approach you at? Like, how'd you come across him?
So, I actually got referred to him like way before we started doing business. Like, I was with a friend of mine, and she was like, "Hey, because I was really complaining about like injuries and like." She's like, "Well, if you need physical therapy, call this guy."
I said, I know a guy.
Yeah, and I was like, "Okay, cool." And I called him, and he was like, "No, I guess no. At first, I called him for the first time, and he actually wasn't really like about it. He thought
Receptive. He's like, oh, this guy's actually going to want physical therapy. Is that what you think we're doing here?
Right, exactly. And
that's just his name on the. That's just the name on the sign.
No,
bro.
and imagine he's like a Miami street guy. He's like a Cuban guy, so he doesn't know me. So he's probably like, oh, fuck this guy. I don't know this guy. And like almost a year later, the guy calls me. He's like, oh yeah, and he eggs me on. So it was through like fucking sheer coincidence. It wasn't even. It just made no sense how I ended up connecting with this guy. So yeah, and then again, the guy's involved in like 17 different scams. The guy's like doing some fucking bank scam. The guy's doing some fucking shit with like
he's diversified. He's an entrepreneur. Diversification is the key to continually making money.
Total fucking con artist is what he is.
I think you're just upset because he had other guys working for him.
No, at my office. I was upset because he lied to me about having other people in my office. Well, because
it's not
that's supposed to be my territory,
territory.
That's supposed to be my fucking
cheating
shop.
on you. Like, what are you doing?
What the fuck?
You're all con men.
We are.
He's a con man. You're a con man.
I get it.
These guys are all lying to each other.
Something I have to tell you though. There's a scale. Like, you can't compare what I did with like fucking, I don't know, with fucking, what's the guy's name?
Need more than that.
Bernie Madoff. Yes. Like, there's levels of it. No, right. I know, but there's levels of con,
Oh yeah. No, what you're saying, like he wasn't bilking people out of their life savings. Like he wasn't saying, hey,
no, fuck him. I was
million.
saying we were all conning people, but what he was like just on another level. Like he was.
Okay.
Yeah. Like we were all.
You were entry
what I
level.
did was wrong. What I did was wrong. I'm not defending what I did.
Yeah.
But like, I wouldn't do some of the shit he was doing. You know, like later I found out he was dealing with like a clinic that was billing for chemo and like what it's. Yeah,
he's
wild.
Like, giving them bad drugs, and you think you're getting chemo, and you're actually getting water.
It's wild. It's wild what the fucking guy did. It was, and then the guy was always broke, legitimately always broke.
Right.
Sometimes he'd be like,
is he a gambler? It's so amazing how many gamblers I've met
that were scam artists.
They're scam artists, but if they weren't scam artists, then they're making like they'll make $1 million a year. They're just raking in money,
but they're always broke.
Huge. Their work ethic is insane. They're extremely good, salesmen. They're really raking in money, and yet they're always bouncing checks, and they're broken. And they're going. Wild. It's like you just made $200,000. You went to the casino. You walked out owing them 20.
That's.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now they pay them back in a week, and they get another couple $100,000, and then they go back and they lose it again. Like it's such a sickness that you can't. understand it. That I have no idea.
So with him, I think it was more like money in, money out. Like it was easy money. You know that old saying, like easy money comes and goes.
Is he buying Bugattis? I mean, is he buying
every time he goes out? He's buying like $2,000 dinners.
So he's paying for every. He's a big shot. I'm gonna get the whole restaurant. Put it on my tab.
That kind of shit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's living in like this apartment he should have been living in like an hour away from town on the beach. Like he's renovating the apartment. Even though he's renting it, like he's doing stupid shit.
Yeah, you're just pissing money away.
Yeah, he had this Ducati. Like, bro, you don't even ride motorcycles. The fuck are you buying a Ducati for? You know, that kind of shit. It's just, and then his worst vice, honestly, in my opinion, was women. Every time I was with him, he showed me a picture of a different chick he was banging, and he had like 15 different chicks. And as you know, money is kind of goes down.
It's extremely expensive if they're out of your league.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So
you're dating a 10 and you should be dating a 5 or a 4, and that 10's costing a lot of money.
It's over. Yeah. It's over. And then there was legitimately sometimes where he would just be like, hey, you know, just give me like 2 more days. Because he'd spend the money he was supposed to give me, he'd spend. He'd just fucking blow it.
Right.
And then he'd do some other shit and come up with another 50 grand doing some scam, and then he'd pay me from some other shit, you know? It was pretty crazy.
Nothing worse than a con man he's just bad with money.
Yeah.
Do you know any of his other scams, like the specifics?
Yeah. One, which I don't know how he didn't go to prison for, was, and I don't know how this flew. This is what he told me, and I don't know how it worked out. Supposedly he had a contact at Bank of America that like looked at accounts, and he'd get a tip as to like accounts that were like heavy, like 20, 30, 40 million, right? Some stupid number. And he'd hit him up and he'd be like, all right, go after this one. So they'd make a check and they'd make it out for like 100 grand. Some amount where the person might not notice. And he'd look for people to cash these checks.
Right.
And he wouldn't cash them. I don't know how the fuck he did this. He'd go to a casino and he'd take out like $100,000. He'd promise the person 10% of whatever they got, which is insane because they're the ones taking all the risk, right?
Yeah, and they're the ones who have the tax liability too. It's so funny. People will do stuff. They're like, yeah, give me, I want 10%, and they take 10% and not realizing. You understand, at the end of the year, you're going to get a 1099. You're going to end up paying $30,000 in taxes on this fucking money.
It's fucking wild.
And they think, oh man, I fucking got off, bro. I made 10 grand for nothing. No, it's not what just happened.
It's fucking wild, is what it is. So supposedly, he had the contact at the bank that would overlook these accounts that had a lot of money, and he'd tell them, hey, go after this one. And he'd find schmucks off the street that were like, oh my God, $10,000? Yeah, let's do it. And then he'd take them to a casino in the middle of the night. They'd go to the casino at like 1 a.m. And somehow they'd cash, like, I don't know how the fuck they did it, but they'd cash that check. Mm-hmm. And they'd get 100 grand in cash, pay the person, and then that's it. They parted ways. And he was doing that for like years. I don't even think he went to prison for that. He went to prison. Well, I'll get to what he went to prison for. But yeah, the guy was just like, he was already on federal probation. He actually was on probation because he used to work for Budweiser, and he stole a bunch of beer and sold it, and and then he claimed like, oh yeah, I got robbed, and they found that it wasn't. He was already like had an open case. So he was on FMA leave. What's that called? FMLA leave from Budweiser. They were paying him because supposedly he had a broken knee. Like the guy was like scammer.
He was doing every scam
possible
right
under the sun. It was pretty wild. So the guy's like, every time he tries to, at this point, I'm just like, bro, just, keep that over there. Don't even tell me about what else you're doing, because I was like, you know, if I get in trouble, let me just get in trouble for this, and then let's leave it be. I don't need like to spend the rest of my life in fucking prison with this fucking idiot for just doing business with someone I shouldn't even be associating with, honestly.
Right.
So what happens? Eventually, I actually end up leaving the insurance company just because, and this is completely legitimate. This isn't illegal. I get approached by a buddy of mine who wants to open a medical clinic in Florida. This is right when it goes legal.
Right.
This is like end of 2017. So right after Trump gets elected, we had it on the ballot in Florida to make it medical. Mm-hmm. So we voted yes. And his idea was always to, like, you know how they have that saying of like, oh, picks and shovels. Like, yeah, people got rich in the gold rush, but the people who got really rich are the people who were selling the picks and the shovels.
Right.
So that was his idea of like the green rush. He was like, yeah, all right, I don't want to deal with, but what's the things, the ancillary services in that business where we could make money?
Right.
And then he got the bright idea of owning the doctor's office. He's like, if we own the doctor's office, people are going to need their cards. There's no insurance involved. They have to pay cash. It could be pretty lucrative. Everybody wants to get their card, right? How many people smoke Florida and they want to do it legally?
You open up a clinic, you hire the doctor.
That's it.
Every patient that comes in and pays $100 or $200, he gets $75 for every person that he sees. And
There you
just
go.
crank them out.
Yep, 100%. So he approached me because he already knew I had the sales background and all that stuff, and we had become good friends. This is like another friend of mine. So we open the doctor's office, and I leave the insurance company. Like, I just drop it. And we start doing that, and that starts going really well. And it's all legit money.
Right.
So around the time I'm already going to tell this guy, hey, I'm done. Like, you know, I did way more than I was. At this point, I'm like, you need to stop. Nelson, you need to stop.
Right.
Like, you've made, at this point, I've probably made like, in cash that's gone through my hands, I've probably had more than, I can't even tell you, honestly. Like.
Was it more than or less than $500,000?
Close.
Close.
Yeah,
Okay.
close.
$500,000?
Close.
Is that $500,000 scam?
And
Roughly.
roughly. Yeah, allegedly. You know?
Yeah. I mean, there's write-offs, there's gas, car
all that kind of
payments,
shit. Yeah.
depreciation of your
Right.
office and your
But that's
house.
money that went through my hands. Like,
Cell phone.
remember, I had to pay these people, so I didn't keep all that money.
Yeah, no,
So,
I understand.
I had to like, so
And you have to deal with them, and there's
Yeah.
management issues. I understand.
no. I'm just saying I didn't physically keep all that money because I gave like half of it to other people. But it was hundreds of thousands of dollars I made within like 18 months.
Right.
Right.
And so that money was funneled into a legitimate.
No. I didn't use that money.
Oh, okay.
I blew it. I traveled. I fucking.
Did we just have a conversation about the idiot that was blowing all the
I
money
know.
he made?
I know. I totally get it.
You're a jackass. I'm going on vacation for $20,000. You don't know what you're doing. You're buying a Bugatti. That's insane. That's stupid money. I'm going to get a Porsche.
At the end of everything, so this is what happens. When I'm just like, I have some money saved.
Don't you
right.
understand the best way is to bet it all on black? See, I'm investing. You're an idiot. So
It's not what happened. I don't gamble. Anyway, I did go on some very nice vacations. I'll tell you that. I went to Costa Rica, went to Colombia. It was nice. Anyway, so we'll talk about Colombian women later. So what happens is I have enough money stashed to live for like a year probably with doing nothing. Like if I do nothing, I could live off this money for a year.
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, we're starting the cannabis business. I can live off of this. Let's go legit enough.
Right.
You haven't gotten caught until now. You're fucking lucky. Go tell this guy to fuck off, and we're done, right? I call the guy doesn't answer the phone. That's never happened. The guy always answers my phone call. I was like, something's wrong here. This is bad. Call, no answer. I get a call from one of his associates that I knew, this lady. That night, she's like, hey, Nelson, what's up? We got to meet. And I was like, oof, here we go. I was like, all right, yeah, let's meet here. I send her an address, and she pulls up, and she's like, hey, Felix got arrested by the FBI today. I was
No, for what?
So at that point, I'm like, all right, but is that all you know? Like, what's going on? He's like, well, you know, he got arrested. We don't really know anything else. That's that, you know? And I was like, okay. All right, cool. You know, whatever. Of course, I'm like, all right, so take this as a sign. Stop.
Right.
This is over. The guy went to prison. You know.
We got arrested. He got to prison.
No. Yeah, he got arrested by the feds.
Yeah, he's going to prison, but he just got arrested. At this point, you said he just got arrested.
Right, but when you get arrested by the feds in Miami, you get sent when you don't get bond, you get sent to the building in downtown Miami. That's prison. That's like federal prison. You're not, even though it's a transition point, but you're gonna be there until you either get bond or you get assigned to a prison and get sentenced. So he's in prison. Mind you, they gave him a $15,000 bond and he didn't have the money. How about that? $15,000, and he didn't have the 15,000. That guy had made millions easily. Since I met him, he had made $3 or $4 million easily in that year and a half. The guy didn't have the 15 grand. His fucking wife was like going around calling like his buddies to borrow money to get him out. It was fucking pathetic. Anyway, she never called me because I don't know. I guess she didn't have my number. So what happens after that? I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm going to leave this alone. Whatever happens, happens. But I'm going to stop doing this, right? But he owed me money. He went to jail, and he never paid me about 10 grand that he owed me. So
I'm sure that was foremost on his mind.
Yeah, no, but it was on my mind. That's for sure. Probably not his. So I was like, fuck, man, how do I get paid? So I call, since he's not in the picture, I have to deal with the owners directly now, right? So I'm like, let me let them know that this guy got arrested and I'm out, and to pay me my fucking money, right? So I go and I approach these guys. They had dealt with me a few times, so they knew I wasn't like trying to.
So you weren't coming out of
nowhere.
nowhere.
Yeah, because they seen my face.
Yeah.
And Felix had explained to them, the guy Felix or whatever, had explained to them, this is my guy, right? So I told them, hey, we got to meet up. We got to talk. And then okay. So I go to their place, and we go in the back office, and I'm like, listen, Felix got arrested. Do you guys know that? And they're like, they put these faces on. They're all freaking like, what? And I'm like, oh, you guys are finding out for me? Oh, you guys are fucked. Okay, well, look, that's not my problem. I need to get fucking paid, bro. Where's my money? And the guys are like, well, we paid him for some of it, this and that. And I was like, oh, here we go. They're not going to pay me. They ended up paying me half because, I don't know, I guess they wanted to be nice guys. They could have told me to fly a kite. There's nothing I could have done about it. But they paid me. And out of courtesy, I gave them the warning. I was like, listen, this is what's going on. I'm out. You paid me my money. I'm not doing this anymore. Of course, one of them calls me back and he's like, hey, come back, let's talk. And for the life of me, I just don't understand why. I was like, yo, all right, let's talk.
Right.
At this point, I'm telling myself like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? You want to turn into this guy? Now you're going to have all these scams going. So basically what ends up happening is one of the guys, I end up cutting a deal with one of the guys. And I end up getting like what he used to get paid.
Okay.
So he was like, look, this is how much I'm billing. I'll give you half. I was like, okay, cool. So at this point, I'm getting paid $3,500 per person. Right. And then I go off to the races again because you can get physical therapy every 6 months. So what?
You just go grab the old guys.
I go back and I make probably just as much money all over again, if not more, because I didn't get to everybody.
Right.
I only got, because some people didn't want to do it or whatever. At that point, everybody knew the scam. Everybody knew the racket. And I go to town. But then what happens? That guy goes to prison. And again, I'm not in prison yet. I'm not indicted. I'm not nothing. So I'm like, bro, should I count my blessings at this point?
Yeah. Aren't you concerned that any of these guys are going to turn over on you or?
I had never been arrested.
Right.
And I was like, at this point, like, if he got arrested, now I'm doing what he was doing. I'm not like a level below him. Now I was doing what he was doing, right? So it's like count your blessings at this point. So I left it alone. And at that point, I didn't really have a choice because the main guy who dealt with me, that's it. I didn't have like other clinic owners I could approach. So I kind of left it at that. And then at that point, the medical clinic was kicking ass. Like, it was doing really well. So I said, all right, what? For real this time. Like, I'm not going to go out and look for a clinic owner or any of that shit, which, of course, like, since I hadn't dealt with the system, I knew, like, I didn't know they were going to rat on me. I didn't know any of that shit. I was like, all right, whatever. They got caught. There's nothing I can do about that. And I just walk away. And then the medical business starts booming, right, with my buddy. And I just started doing that. And the funny thing is, people, when I got arrested, most people thought, because I never told anybody I was doing this, right? So, like, the pandemic happens or whatever. So this is like 2018. I don't get arrested until 2021, 4 years later. I really stopped doing everything in 2018. And then after the pandemic is when I get arrested, which is wild with thinking about it, because it's like, fuck, man, why'd they take so long? Apparently the FBI told me it was because of the shutdown. They didn't work for months. and they came after me just like when they reopened and everything was like kind of moving again. So in the meanwhile, I'm like this entrepreneur in the community. I'm like breaking records in the medical company. We have like 4,000 clients in 4 years. Everything's going fantastic. Everything's going really well. One of the partners gets bought out. Like everything's going fantastic. Everything really, really well. So that month, the company had actually made more money than it's ever made. So I was like, all right, I deserve a break. Let me go to Colombia. Which is funny, that whole thing about Thailand that you guys talk about here, it's the same thing in Colombia. The same
Right.
exact thing. Like the women are like the most gorgeous women you ever seen in your life. They'll marry you for like $1. You can have the most badass penthouse you've ever had in your life for like $700 a month. A meal on the street is like $1. It's an amazing place. And then Medellin, like these women have these accents that just like, bro, they could ask me to eat a piece of dog shit and I do it with that accent that they have, I swear. Like I'd eat a mile long fucking turd just to eat out of where it came out of. Like,
these are bad examples. Okay, all right, I hear you. All right.
Yeah, the most gorgeous women you've ever seen in your life. Anyway, so I go to Colombia and I have my 3, 4, 5 day debauchery binge. I'm like on top of the world. I have like a super fantastic business. I got away scot-free. I'm a legit guy now. I'm not breaking the law. So I get back on a Monday and I get off the plane and we're walking towards immigration and there's these 4 TSA officers. Mind you, there's 2 of them are wearing regular clothes. He's like, hey, you 2, step aside. And I was like, the fuck is going on here? You know? Mind you, I'm coming back from Colombia, so I didn't really I had stopped doing it 4 years earlier.
Right.
So at this point, I really did think like
You've forgotten all about this. I got away with this. This is done.
You know,
they're not going to wait 4 years.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
No, 1,000%. So the TSA officers pull us aside. They let everybody pass. We're the last ones left. It was like this.
Do you just think it's a random stop?
I have no idea at this point. I think it is weird, but again, it doesn't occur to me. So they stop me. They ask me, where are you coming from? Medellin. Why'd you go for a vacation? Who you with? Him. Who is he? My friend. This is a buddy of mine that just went to Colombia with me. They do this like 30-minute interrogation there in the hallway. Then they put me in a room, look through all my shit, fucking pat me down. After like an hour of being with them, they let me go. And I was like, that's fucking weird. Whatever. I didn't think much of it. I just left it. It was random. That was Monday. So Thursday, I get a call at 5 a.m. to my cell phone. It's a phone number I don't recognize. So I just turn the ringer off and I go back to sleep. But then I get a knock at my door.
Was it a nice knock or was it a law enforcement knock?
It was a concerned knock.
Okay.
So my aunt is my landlord.
Okay.
So she comes to knock on my door. And I open the door and I'm like, I'm legitimately like waking up. I'm like, bro. And she says, bro, I'll never forget this. La policía está afuera. The cops are outside. They're looking for you. And I was like, the cops? What? My phone rings again, and it's the same phone number that just called me 5 minutes earlier. I was like, I should answer this. Hello? Nelson Rodriguez? Yes, this is Agent such and such with the FBI. You have 5 minutes to come outside of your house. Click. Okay.
That may very well be the nicest arrest I've ever heard of.
So they couldn't come in my house,
right?
Because my gates were locked. That's the only reason they couldn't come inside. And thank God that I live in they have these things in Miami called efficiencies. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Yeah.
But so I lived in like half of a house. Thank God my aunt lived next door and she was able to come and knock on my door.
Right.
Because if not, who knows what would have happened. They would have put, whatever. So I go outside. There's 4 City of Miami cops blocking off this road with like 4 City of Miami cruisers blocking off this side of the road with like 8 cops. Another 4 City of Miami cruisers blocking off this side of the road with like another 8 cops. There's 4 FBI cars outside my house with like 8 FBI agents. And 4 of the FBI agents are fucking pointing AR-15s at my house. And I'm like, what am I, a fucking terrorist?
Yeah, this is fraud.
This is ridiculous.
It's a fraud case.
Again, it's been 4 years, man. You don't understand. This is gone. It's still not like registering in my head.
I understand that. I'm saying in general.
Yeah,
in general terms,
yeah,
what are you doing? It's a fraud case.
No, I get it.
Nobody got hurt. There was this is not there were no guns. There were nobody's been murdered. This is a fraud case.
I don't know if there was like I'm a big Second Amendment guy. I owned a ton of guns, so I don't know if maybe they were.
Oh, they might have known that.
Yeah, so maybe
not that they keep lists. Because they don't keep lists because that would be unconstitutional.
Yeah.
But
You
we heard from a guy, you may have some weapons. And the fact that you're constantly wearing a Scarface jumpsuit didn't help the situation.
Definitely not. So, and this is a month after George Floyd, like a month. So I'm here like, I'm like, all right, these guys aren't going to kill me. I take my cell phone out. I give it to my aunt. I tell her, call my parents. I put my hands up. I turn around and I start backing up towards their cars. I don't even give them a chance to like say anything, nothing. One of the FBI agents starts telling my aunt, look, this is my card. If you want any information, we're taking them. They don't read me my Miranda rights. They don't say shit. They pat me down. I have the video of me getting arrested. Channel 7 News was out there. I back up. They arrest me and they take me. I'm sitting in the car and I'm still like, all right, whatever. This is probably not for me. They'll explain shit. We'll clear this up later. I honestly thought they were looking for my dad because me and him have the same name and shit like this has happened to me like 4 times in my life where people were looking for me and they're actually looking for my father. So I was like, all right, we'll clear this up later. They take me all the way to the FBI headquarters in Miramar, Florida, which is like 30 to 40 minutes north of Miami. I'm sitting there and I'm calm. I'm like, we'll figure this out. This isn't a big deal. They start bringing in other people that got arrested. And I was like.
You start recognizing people?
Yep. Instantly. And
Tommy.
No.
Bill. Cheryl, what are you guys doing here? This is crazy. Hey.
It was all the people I dealt with during the whole fucking clinic scam. And I was like, bro, these guys.
These are just the low-level guys they're bringing? Or are they bringing in the doctors?
A mix. No,
okay.
the doctors were never brought in.
Okay.
At least not with me. I don't know if they were ever brought in, but not with me. They're bringing in the owners and some of the other recruiters.
What about the main guy?
He was already in prison. He ratted everybody out.
How much time did he get, though?
The FBI told me at some point, I don't know if it's true or not, they were going to give him 14 years. And he cooperated so much and gave so much information that he only ended up doing 2.
I was going to say he has 3 years coming to him.
Yeah.
No. He can go right now and commit a crime. And they're like, oh, yeah, you've got 3 years coming.
Yeah, it's wild. So he ended up doing 2. So mind you, he gets arrested in 2018.
He's rebuilt his whole life before you guys.
He got out in 2020.
A couple years before you even get arrested.
He got arrested in July of 2021. That guy's already out.
Bump into you in a mall and be like, you're still out? You're probably behind. You might want to put some money aside.
It's wild. Yeah.
Right.
So it's pretty much game over at that point. I know what I'm getting indicted for,
All right.
I call a lawyer. They let me go on bond. That same day, we have a virtual court hearing because, mind you, it's July of 2021. So it's still like pandemic, all that shit. They take me from the FBI headquarters to the U.S. Marshal's office, and that's in the same building as the federal court in downtown Miami. And the whole time I'm sitting there in the fucking jail cell, they fingerprint me, do all that shit, the U.S. Marshals. I'm like, man, like, this is nuts. Like, I at this point, I feel like some sort of, I don't know, like drug dealer, like drug smuggler. I feel like fucking Osama bin Laden or something. Like, the amount of agents and shit that they come out with is pretty wild. U.S. Marshals, like, I thought U.S. Marshals, like, only went after, like, these big time cases and shit. Anyway. So I'm there, and the whole time I'm sitting in the jail cell, and I'm like, my life is fucking over. I am fucked. Goodbye plans, bye-bye. All those plans I had, because I was thinking of taking the company public and doing all these crazy things. Overnight, I'm just like, that's not happening. And I have I'm terrified at this point. I'm just like, what the fuck is going to happen? I don't know anything about federal prison. I'm probably going to get sent to a camp. I don't know about any of that shit. I'm just like, here we go. I'm going to be in a fucking bunch of prison in a fucking with like, a prison with a bunch of like thugs and fucking people I don't want to be around. I'm having all these thoughts in my head. the thought that pierced my head though was the piercing image of my mother crying.
Mm-hmm.
It was to this day, it gives like my heart just like breaks. Like it sucks because I just don't know why I couldn't get the image of my mother finding out and being so disappointed in me, because I was supposed to be the one guy in the family who was never supposed to go to jail, never supposed to get in trouble. And I took it a step further. I didn't just get in trouble. I got arrested by the feds.
Right.
You took it a step further. All your fucking dumbass cousins and shit and your uncles, the state got them, but you got arrested by the feds. So, you know?
It's yeah. It's a
graduation.
It's more serious than, yeah.
So they let us stew in there the whole day, and we have our court date at like 4 p.m, like damn near the end of the day. I get out on a promissory note bond because
Nice.
I'd never been arrested or anything.
Yeah.
You know, my mom and dad sign a paper. They're like, yeah, we got to pay $100,000 if he flees the country, which he's not going to. I surrender my passport the next day. I have to give up all my guns. So, you know, I sold all my guns to my mom. And then I go see a lawyer, and he's like, bro, you know, this is it. They showed me the discovery. It's not really all that good, but, you know, we got to give this time. This is one thing I'll say. I was so naive, and this is how much I didn't understand the system. My lawyer is a federal lawyer, like federal defense attorney. He's done thousands of these cases.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy edged me on the whole time, like, oh, you might not go to prison. You're going to get convicted for sure, but you might not go to prison. You might not. Obviously, hindsight is 20/20. I didn't realize that fucking the feds have like a 98% conviction rate.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you're like, I don't know, some politician who can rat out like a president of a country, you're going to prison.
Right.
Period.
Yeah, by the time they've arrested you, their case is already done.
It's solid.
Yeah.
You know, unless you cooperate and get some time off. But even then, even if you cooperate and get time off, you're still going to prison.
Yeah, you're going to do some time. You're typically not getting off free and clear.
Correct. So the guy just tells me there's a good possibility you won't go to prison. You're definitely getting convicted, but you might get like house arrest or probation. So the not knowing was what really bothered me. Like if from the beginning I would have known I was going to prison, I would have been okay. But I was out on bond for a year and a half while they were like doing whatever the fuck they wanted to do, and putting some of the people, supposedly some of the co-defendants wanted to go to trial, and they were like figuring all that shit out. So I pled guilty right away, and then I didn't get sentenced until, when did I get sentenced? So I get arrested July of 2021, and I get sentenced in October of 2022. So I was out on bond that whole time. And needless to say, in a year and a half, like I kind of want to I want to figure out my life. I'm like, all right, what else am I going to do when I get out? You know, even though I have no clue how much time I'm going to get at that point or anything. I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a book, because at least like basically the way I saw it was overnight, all the proof that I ever had of like having lived a life got wiped away. So I was like, damn, if I die tomorrow, there was no proof I was here.
Okay.
So I decided to write a book. And I actually have a copy here. I'll give you one. And then I write the book. So I start writing the book in August of 2021. And then I published the book in March of 2022. I ended up doing like this book. Mind you, no one knows I'm out on bond. No one knows I got arrested.
Right.
I'm just kind of like doing this, and like people know me as this business guy. So they're like, oh, it's the next chapter of his life. He's writing a book. I do this book launch party. I make like $5,000 that night.
What is the book? Is it just on is it a true crimes type story, or is it about starting, or is it just everything?
Up until the point of I got arrested, but I didn't say anything about like all the fraud I did or any of that shit.
Oh, okay.
It was just my life up until that point. So, needless to say, I need to write another one.
Right.
So, it went really well. Like, I was like, okay, but how can I like do more of this? Like, I like storytelling. So, what can I do? And fun fact, me and Joe Rogan actually have the same birthday.
Oh, okay.
August 11th. So, I was a big Joe Rogan fan. I have a lot of time on my hands at this point. So, I started watching him, and I'm like, maybe I should start a podcast. I was like, all right, let me look into it. And then in June of 2022, I decided to start doing it, but I did it audio only. I didn't get cameras. I just did like me and a microphone. I started doing it. A few people listen to the episodes. They say, oh man, this is good. Later on, within a few months, I find a studio that kind of does studio time. I rent it. I start doing the episodes. And then right when I started doing the podcast in October of 2022 is when finally I get sentenced, and I get sentenced to 8 months in federal prison. So what happens is they let me self-surrender. So I picked January. So between October and January, I started recording episodes, and I was like, all right, 8 months. I do one episode a week. I did the calculations. I recorded enough episodes to schedule everything while I was away.
Okay.
So if you didn't know me, you thought I was still on the street.
Right.
So, and it was
if you're a fan, if you're a subscriber, they have no idea you've disappeared.
They have no idea. Exactly. And the funny thing is, the day I got out from prison, my mom handed me my cell phone, and it was like, bro, you're a fucking dick. Where are you? What the fuck is going on? Like, people were trying to tell me congratulations on the podcast and all that shit, but obviously I didn't have my cell phone. Anyway, so I record enough, and the week before I went away, so this is like between December 30th of 2022 and January 9th of 2023, I spent that whole week just like scheduling everything for all those months. Mind you, January 9th is my sister's birthday, which was yesterday. Happy birthday, Janice. On January 9th, she has to drop off her baby brother at prison. Her 32nd birthday. Fucking hell of a birthday present. With my niece, my nephew, my mom, and my sister. It was wild. So I schedule everything. And then they dropped me off at Coleman, at the Coleman camp. So
nice.
Yeah.
That's where Jess was.
Yeah.
When it was a female.
It was a female camp, yeah.
During COVID,
they swapped it.
They changed it to male.
It's pretty wild.
Is that where you met Ross?
Yeah.
So I have a question. Was there a guy there named Donovan Davis?
Yeah, he was in my same unit.
Yeah. I wrote a story about him.
Oh, that's cool.
The Gap.
Oh shit! Yeah. Wasn't he on Forbes or something like that?
Oh yeah, he was in Forbes. Yeah. He Forbes.com wrote a couple articles about him.
Yeah.
He was doing all the repairs on all the equipment but yeah, Donovan, he's hilarious, right? He's funny.
He's a funny guy. You met him at the Medium?
Yeah, at the Low.
At the Low.
I was there I was there with him for probably 6 years.
When did you get out?
I got out in 2019.
And when did he go in? You remember?
Yeah, about 14, maybe.
Fuck, he was in there a while.
But he's got like 17 years.
Fuck.
He's still in.
Yeah, that's wild.
He's supposed to be getting out.
Because I met him in 2023 when I went in.
He's supposed to be getting out in like February or March of this year.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah,
good for
that's because of the credits and everything.
But
yeah, he anyway. So I just wondering because everybody knew him, right?
Yeah,
There's only 300 people in the camp. How many people are there?
By the time I left, just under 500.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They were shoving people in there by the time I was leaving.
And I didn't know you met Ross there.
Yeah. So I go in, strip church, all that shit. I've never been strip church in my life, so I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. So I got changed clothes. I walk in, they introduce me to the Cubans, which is weird because I would have thought that place was full of Cubans because it's in Florida and it wasn't. There was like 10, 11 Cubans. Later, I found out that Cubans, the reason there were so little of them is because you can only go to a camp if you're a U.S. citizen.
Right.
If you're a resident with a green card, they don't let you go below the low.
Yeah. So most of them are in the
lows. Yeah. I would assume Miami low is probably chock full of Cubans.
Yeah.
Or maybe the Miami camp. So that's it. I'm in prison. It's crazy. Like I still couldn't believe it. It was still hard for me to like process. I mean, for you, obviously it was different, but for me, it was like, how the fuck did I end up here? Like,
right.
I was supposed to be this kid who just did things differently and like was a decent kid. And here I am at 30 years old, like right when I turned 30, thrown in fucking prison. It's fucking wild. That night, that night, I'll tell you the funny story about first night in the shower. So I'm taking a shower.
First night in the shower.
I'm taking a shower, and there's, I don't know the whole thing about the slippers.
No, I was gonna say dropping soap.
No. No.
Well,
I didn't know the whole thing about the slippers.
Right. Yeah.
So
shower slides.
Yes,
Slippers,
shower slides. Yeah. So the shower slides, I leave them at the end of the stall and I go in.
Ugh.
So I hear someone yelling, Cuba, Cuba. That's what they used to call me in there in Cuba, whatever. Because my prison was full of Puerto Ricans. Like out of the 500 of us that were there, it was like 350 Puerto Ricans. It was crazy. Never seen so many Puerto Ricans in one spot. The guy who's yelling my name or my nickname is this guy named Mello. Mello has a scorpion tattoo on his fucking face.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking like, oh, here we go. I turn around and he's like, ponte la chancleta, ponte. He's like, put your fucking slides on. I put them on. I finished taking a shower. I go outside, and when I'm like drying off in my room, he's like, yo, bro, you're going to get fucking fungus on your feet, bro.
A sap or fungus or something. Yeah, you'll get.
That's how like unfamiliar with the prison system I was, you know?
I wonder how bad it really is. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I don't even
everybody wears them. Like you don't.
Yeah, no, it's disgusting. Right. I mean, in our prison, I'll be honest, it was really clean.
No, I was gonna say, and the thing is, they clean they're constantly cleaning.
Constantly cleaning it.
Not,
yeah.
The environment
every morning
isn't filthy or anything like that. But the fact is that you have to understand that if this guy gets a cold, everybody's getting a cold. Even though they're wiping everything down constantly, you have no idea how many everybody's using the same stuff, and there's just. And
not to get gross, but the shit that guys do in the shower.
Yeah, of course. I think that's to me, that's what my thought was. Because I was like, there's so many chemicals in this place. I don't think that there's anything necessarily alive.
Yeah, but even if you miss a spot or something, you know, everybody's taking a piss in there and fucking whacking off in there. It's gross. So that night, so that happens in the shower. The Cubans are pretty cool with me, so everybody gets me like a pair of slides. Actually, 2 pairs of slides, so not nice enough. I meet this old poppy. He has cancer now. God, que Dios te bendiga, Calderón. He's not doing well. He got out after doing 7 years, and then he got diagnosed with colon cancer. It's fucking horrible, man. It's the coolest old man you'll ever meet. He gets me what I need. He knows I like to write, so he got me like this notebook. All the Cubans kind of hooked me up. So that night, I'm sitting in my bunk. I'm just like laying down. You know, they did count or whatever. I'm laying down in my bunk. And I'm looking at the roof, and I'm just like, wow, bro. I'm in fucking prison. Like, I'm in shock. I'm in total shock at this point. I can't cry. I can't laugh. I'm so, I'd never been in shock in my life. When people are like, oh, he's in shock. Or when people freeze or whatever, I never understood what that was. And then that happened to me that night. And I was just like, you know, the fuck is going to happen now? But then funny enough, you know, life is strange. When you think you're at your lowest, it's more like a springboard or like a catapult to like another phase of your life. You know, it's pretty wild. So
for some people,
yeah,
some people hit bottom, they just stay there. So yeah,
that brings up a question. Do you think that's a choice?
Oh yeah. Some people just let that define them, and they don't. They tell themselves, I'll never break. I'll never
amount to anything.
I'll never get out of this. I'll never bounce back.
I agree.
They just that self-talk kind of just destroys. They I mean, you've heard the term. You know, you suffer more in your mind than you do in reality.
100,000%.
And that's true. It's like you know, like when I went to the dentist, like you know, I told you, listen, I was so overwhelmingly anxious and worried. And it was nowhere near as bad as what I had in my mind. It just never is. Every time, it just never is anything that I worry about. It's like, this is going to happen. This is going to be horrible. Right. And then it happens, and it's just not.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's the same thing. You get to prison, and just like when I got out of prison, I told you the other day, like I thought, I'm going to be working at McDonald's. I'm never going to get a shot. Maybe someday I'll be able to sell used cars. I'm never going to bounce back. I'm never going to make any money. Life's going to be, my expectations of life had dropped so dramatically. I just didn't have any real expectations. I wanted to do some things that I thought if I busted my ass, maybe someday I can pull these things off, and I'll work at it. But, you know, my expectations were very low. Yeah.
For me, it was, and mind you, the podcast is already working.
Right.
Meaning like it's functioning without me.
Right.
But I'm so in shock and so in my brain that night that I couldn't even think about that. Like, whatever. But anyway, so I wake up the next morning and that's kind of gone. I don't know. I guess a good night's sleep just kind of like calmed me down.
If you sleep hot at night, you know how disruptive that can be. Whether you're having trouble falling asleep, you're waking up sweating in the middle of the night, or all of the above, that's where Ghost Bed can help. As the makers of the coolest beds in the world, Ghost Bed is your go-to for cooling mattresses, cooling pillows, and cooling bedding. From their signature Ghost Ice fabric to patented technology that adjusts to your body's temperature, every Ghost Bed mattress is designed with cooling in mind. So whether you want a plusher mattress that cushions your shoulders and hips, or a firm option with exceptional support, your Ghost Bed will keep you cool and comfortable all night long. When you purchase a Ghost Bed mattress, your comfort is guaranteed. You can try out your mattress for 101 nights, risk-free, to make sure it's the right fit for you. Plus, they offer free shipping, and most items are shipped within 24 hours. If you're not sure which Ghost Bed is right for you, check out their mattress quiz. You'll answer a few questions and get a personalized recommendation. Even better, our listeners can get 50% off site-wide for a limited time. Just visit ghostbed.com/Cox and use the code COX at checkout. Again, that's ghostbed.com/Cox with the code COX at the checkout to save a whopping 50% off site-wide.
And I wake up, they send me to Unicor to work, you know. Fucking newbies get the worst jobs, all that shit. I get acclimated, you know, who's who, this and that.
Unicor is the factory that they have for
Yeah.
inmates to work at.
Yeah,
What did they make there?
You start at like 12 cents, 10 cents an hour.
No, I mean, what did you fabricate? What did you make?
Oh, we got like these long pieces of plastic and some long pieces of metal. So I'm assuming when you assembled it, it became furniture or something like that, or like shelving.
Was it? Oh, okay. I was gonna say, because at the other one they make the paneling or dividers for cubicles.
It could be that because we got these long things. Supposedly,
You never asked what you were doing?
I didn't give a fuck about that place. Fuck
Okay.
that place. The fuck. So Unicor, yeah. So I get sent over to Unicor, and this is interesting how life comes full circle. So being from Miami, Rick Ross is like, you know, a big deal down there, and Rick Ross would always mention this group of guys named the Boobie Boys in the rap songs.
Okay.
And I didn't even know what that really was until I went to prison. I'm going to tell you why. So I go to prison, my second day, third day, whatever. They send me to Unicor. I go to Unicor. This old black dude is like teaching me what to do and stuff. They send me back to the unit. We're done working for the day. And some guy's like, "Oh, you know who that is?" I was like, "Bro, I just got here yesterday. I don't even know where the fuck I'm standing." "No, I don't know who that is." "Oh, that's Spoon." Like, Spoon? The fuck does that make me, Fork? Is he supposed to be someone important? I don't know. He's like, "Bro, he got pardoned by Obama. He was a Miami guy." So I end up looking him up, and I was like, "Oh shit, I wrote a book report about this guy in like middle school." And the Boobie Boys was basically this big drug group that controlled like the black neighborhood in Miami for years. They did it for a while. And that's who. It was weird. Me and him became really good friends. Like, we took on this weird, like, mentor-disciple thing.
Right.
Spoon knows I'm going to write his book one day.
You said he got pardoned by
Obama. Yeah, because he was given
wasn't out yet.
Yeah.
So he got a commutation.
Commutation. Yeah.
Right.
So
Because Obama was...
he wasn't allowed to go down, and until that happened, they let him start working his way down from...
commuted the sentence. Instead of you being at like a pen, and then...
Correct.
He commuted the sentences where he was like... But they did it gradually, so that you didn't just get let out, because they realized, like, if you can't... Somebody had been locked up 20 years, you let him hit the street with nothing, no halfway house.
Yeah. It's not good.
Commit another crime and go back to prison, so you have to grad. So these guys from the pen were going from like the pen...
To the medium, to the low.
To the low.
To the camp.
To the camp.
Yep.
To a halfway house.
Then to the street.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So I caught him. Well, he maybe only had 6 years left at that point. He'd been in jail for like 17 years, something stupid. He's in North Carolina now, I think. He's getting transferred to the Miami camp soon. But anyway, him and me become buddies, become good friends. So that was pretty wild. Like, again, I'm like, you know, I like the gangster stories and all that stuff. I ended up becoming friends with one of them in prison. Like, one of the gangster stories from when I was a kid. It's crazy how life kind of, like, you know, does all that. But yeah, that was my second day in there. By the time I'm a month in, I'm used to it. I got my routine. You know, I'm exercising. What, bro? You did 14 years. I still don't. I did it too. But what's this? Like,
I did 13 years. 14.
I'm sorry, 13
you
years.
keep rounding up. You
Nah,
did that yesterday too.
Sorry. 13 years.
What do you mean? That's actually from the state. It started in the state.
And then it kind of came over.
So in the state, I don't know which state. I don't know if this is all states or just in general. You're not allowed to eat. So you're not allowed to speak when you eat. Like the inmates in Florida, this is my understanding at some prisons, and I don't even know if they still do this, but the guards, like they give you 5 minutes to eat. So you come in, you sit down across from somebody else at a long table. So you sit down, you eat real quick, and they count down. So they start counting down. And then as they count down, and you're not allowed to talk. So it's not like, hey, bro, you're not allowed to take anything from off another person's plate or do anything. So you basically just eat and you don't talk. And because you're not allowed to say, hey, man, I'm going, or see you, or say, hey, I'm leaving. You
knock on the door.
It's a way of saying, like,
I'm leaving.
See you guys. And everybody like looks up and nods and whatever. Yeah.
I just started doing it because I saw everybody else doing it. So I was like, all right.
Yeah. So it's funneled down from the state prisons to the.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So
that's how it was explained to me. Did you have Hamburger Day Wednesday?
Of course, Wednesdays. Yeah.
So the way Wednesday was explained to me was that the Cubans had been, I don't know if it was Jimmy Carter or it was Reagan, I forget who. All the Cubans were being deported. Right?
Really?
Yeah. Keep it on after the Mariel boat lift.
Oh, yeah.
The
After
Cuban
they were running rampant. Yeah.
Cuban crime wave. They'd arrested, thousands of them. They were filled up in Atlanta. And so Reagan was saying,
that prison riot that happened?
Riot.
Yeah.
Reagan was saying like he was going to send them back. I want to say it was Reagan. I'm not positive, but it probably sounds like Reagan. He's going to send them all back. And what they did was they had a riot and they took over the prison. And then they negotiated over the course of several days after they took it over. And they wanted their sentences to be reviewed and not have to go back to Cuba. And 2, they wanted, I forget what else they wanted, and something completely silly. And the other thing they wanted hamburgers and French fries on Wednesday, or at least once a week. And so the BOP said, fine, we'll give you hamburger and French fries. They did everything. They got the 3 things that they got. One of them was hamburgers and French fries on Wednesdays.
Thanks to the Cubans.
Thanks to the Cubans. That's what I was told. I was like, that can't be true. And they were like, I'm telling you, that is absolutely true. I'm like, there's no fucking way. They were like, it's absolutely true.
You know what else I heard? And I think it happened in 96, if I'm not mistaken, 1996. So it was under Clinton, if that's true. What I also heard is that's why a certain amount of I don't think this can be true, because I'm sure there's prisons in Miami that have more than they don't allow a certain amount, like more than a certain amount of Cubans in each prison. It's because of that.
Well, it's probably possible.
It's possible.
That seems perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
I remember, but I remember one time I was like, I just can't believe that every Wednesday they are giving us. When I first got there, like the hamburgers and French fries were good. They gave us like cheeseburgers and it was good. Everything was good.
They weren't bad, but it was too small. They were tiny when I.
Yeah, but this is when I got there. We were on the old menu. You were on the new. You were on the national menu. When I got there, it was just regular food. Like it was good. And I remember thinking, man, I can't believe that on Wednesdays they give us hamburgers and French fries. That's hilarious. And I remember one of the guys goes, it may be prison. Or he looked at me and he said, this was my cousin. He looked at me, he goes, it may be prison, but it's still fucking America, bro. And I just but he said it with such conviction. I just started laughing.
He's got a point. So I actually start getting like, by the way, if you go to prison and you have friends that like ask your mom about you, send you commissary, like, you need to cherish those friends for the rest of your fucking life, okay? If those people call you in the middle of you having sex with your dream girl, you need to stop for a second and call and talk to them and entertain whatever the fuck they want and hang up the phone whenever they're done and go back to fucking your dream girl, because those people, they're invaluable, bro. They're worth their weight in gold. Anyway. Right. So my mom's telling me when my friends are sending me commissary, she's keeping me updated. The podcast is actually getting some traction while I'm gone, which is cool, which was the plan. I mean, I couldn't control it, and then while I'm in there, they take out my cellie, this Puerto Rican kid named, we used to call him Jack Sparrow. This Puerto Rican kid, they take him out And then they put some weird dude in my cell, and I'm like, all right, fuck that. So I had already become friends with the head orderly in the other unit. So how that happened was the second day I got there, when I was getting commissary, I hear a familiar voice, and I was like, there's no way on the planet I know this guy. That is not Jose Batista over there. I look over, Jose Batista. Jose Batista was my coworker at the insurance company.
Okay.
He also caught a separate case from me, but for the same shit. Same exact thing. Got ratted on, everything. It was weird. Like, we even got like more or less the same amount of time. So I walk over to him like, Jose, you remember me? Oh shit, Nelson, what's up? He greets me. He's like, yo, come to my unit tonight. I go to his unit, and who do I meet? Ross Mendel.
Okay.
Ross is sitting in his room with the head orderly, G, who also I became really good friends with. This kid named Gio, who was like the unit chef, like he would whip up stuff for us. And that's how I met Ross.
Okay.
Which Ross looked very different in in prison. He was like 60 pounds overweight. He hadn't gotten his teeth done, so he looked very different. But yeah, so that night I become friends with the head orderly. So what happens is they shove some weird guy in my cell, and I was like, yeah, I'm done. Let me leave to the other unit. So I talked to the head orderly, G, I became friends with. He moves me over there. When he moves me over there, basically, me and him become really good friends, and that's when I build the routine. I start writing. I read a ton of books in those. I end up getting out in 5 months. I read like 31 books. I loved reading, man. It really, I hadn't read in a long time.
So you didn't do 8 months, you did 5 months?
I ended up doing 5 because...
Would you halfway house or just home because of COVID?
CARES Act.
Okay.
Yeah. So you know how they did the whole 50% or whatever?
Yeah.
I ended up getting out in 5 months, and I was supposed to go straight home, but what ended up happening was they didn't do the whole home inspection or whatever the fuck, so they actually held me hostage there for like 2 months, and then they sent me home. So the cool thing was when I got let out and I was at the halfway house, I had a couple of YouTube shorts do like 150,000 views. That to me was like, oh my God.
Yeah, no, that's good for a channel you had just started and weren't monitoring.
Exactly. So I get let out. The podcast is going well. Mind you, I had like scheduled way out in advance.
Right. So you have some time.
Yeah. So I got plenty of time to figure out what I'm going to do. So while I'm at the halfway house, I get in contact with the owner of that studio I used to record at. And I managed to convince the halfway house to give me an internship at the podcast studio. I have a fucking ankle monitor at this point and everything.
Right.
So I get to go there at night and record my episodes and then just come home. So that's how I kept it going. Like, I kept recording, and eventually I got let off the ankle monitor, right? So now I'm like mobile on probation. I can go. Eventually some guy that I had on my show, he's like, do you know this guy? And I'm like, Ian Bick. I've never heard of this guy. No, who is he?
Right.
And he's like, oh, he went to prison. He's a podcaster. You should hit him up. So I DM him thinking like, bro, this guy's a podcaster, legit podcaster. He's not going to respond, hey, man, I love what you're doing. I went to prison too. Would love to connect
But at
with
that point, he was just doing shorts, right? He didn't start the channel yet, right?
No, yeah. This is September of 2023. Yeah.
He was about to start it, because I think he started in January of 2024, or did he do? 23?
No. I think 23.
Was it 23?
23,
okay,
yeah, because he had some episodes out.
Oh, okay.
So,
because when I heard about him, he didn't even have a channel yet. It was just TikToks. He was blowing up on TikTok.
Yeah. He did start with the short form stuff. So I just leave it alone, and I also knew like, man, he's busy. Like, you know how you did with your phone, how you're like, bro, this is the whole day. Like, I have to get back to people like hours later because he's the same. His phone is just like cluttered.
Yeah.
It's horrible. But anyway, he gets back to me. And then I end up setting up something with him in March of 2023. No, 2024, I'm sorry. I go up there, I record his episode. And that was my first big little pop, like of getting my face out there and getting my story. Mm-hmm. I've become good friends with him since. I actually last month I went up to his studio and recorded a bunch of stuff because I'm in between studios in Miami. And here we are. Now I'm on Matt's show.
Have you ever seen the original guy that that you were working with and got out? Have you ever seen him?
Never
since?
seen him
No?
again. I would rather never see him for the rest of my life for obvious reasons. The restitution was $500,000,
Okay.
and they were obligating me to actually pay $122,000.
Okay, so they're splitting that among several people.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll get to that now. Right when I got, that's a great question, because right after I got back from seeing Ian at his studio in March of 2024 and recording my episode with him, the week after, my probation officer calls me. Mind you, you know what this is like in financial crimes. Like, they're into your, like, I'm broke as shit. I'm making no money on purpose because I'm like, man, if I make more money, all this stuff, like, it's just hard. It's a difficult situation, right? Because they're looking at you through with a fine tooth comb. My I don't know. Can we say the C word on YouTube? Anyway, whatever. This fucking bitch of a
you can't. Don't say that because it'll.
I didn't.
You're difficult to deal with probation officer, female probation officer.
Difficult fucking asshole of a probation officer that I was dealing with. Basically, like, blackmailed me into like paying more than I should. Long story short, March, right after I get back from Ian Big, she calls me and she's like, "Hey, Nelson, what's up? It's, such and such a probation. Hi, ma'am. How you doing? Okay, so I don't know how this happened, but your restitution is paid off. One of your co-defendants paid it all off. So you, as of today, you don't owe any more money."
Well, dang.
Holy shit.
It was
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, and I was like, I can't ask, can I? Right? I'm not going to. Right. So I wish I knew who it was so I could thank them. But yeah, I got off. I'm very blessed because that never happens, ever.
Hey, you guys, if you like the video, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified of videos just like this. Also, share the video. We're going to put all of Nelson's links for social media and for his YouTube channel in the description box. You can go there, click on it. You can subscribe and follow. Do me a favor and consider joining our Patreon. It's $10 a month. We have Patreon exclusive content on Patreon, and it really does help Colby and I make these videos. So thank you very much. See ya.